Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's special LinkedIn Live session. I am Vishwendra, founder of Growth Sutra, and today we are diving deep into Rise Up, Your Career Reclaimed, with the book's author Deepak Bhootra from Jabulani Consulting. Before we start, here are some eye opening stats that I thought to share with you. Did you know that 76% of employees worldwide experience burnout at least sometimes? This is the statistics shared by Gallup 22-24 report. Or that 85% of jobs are filled through networking. And these are the stats from LinkedIn. But yet, many professionals struggle to network authentically, not only on a virtual platform but also in offline platforms. And astonishingly, LinkedIn's 2025 research tells us that 70% of professionals still wait for permission before taking charge of their own career growth. So if you are a high potential professional feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just ready to reclaim your career with purpose and strategy, this session is for you. We'll explore emotional signals that can disrupt career. Uh, we'll also explore how to build influence and networking to boost career. And then the last segment is going to be on resilience and reinvention for a sustained career growth. But let me invite our speaker today, Dr. Deepak Bhootra, on this stage. He has joined our session earlier as well. But today, this session is an exclusive where we are going to talk about a book that he and his team has authored. Deepak, do you want to talk about, give a quick introduction about yourself and the book?
Absolutely.
What
Wish,
inspired and yeah.
absolutely, Wish. In fact, I think the preamble, Wish, that you laid out is very powerful, and I'll address that. But before that, I am based out of Houston. I am a B2B sales consultant. I've spent 30 years in sales operations, and looking at, how salespeople operate. Along the way, I've been an ICF coach for 15 years of my life, Wish. And in those 15 years, I've spoken to some people and learned a lot about how human beings interact and work in the corporate world, right? And one of the things that happened was that actually I realized that I was very lucky because I found some very awesome mentors, some people that showed amazing grace in giving me guidance and support. But then I also consider myself to be in those 20% that find those opportunities, right? And people tell me that, Deepak, you need to be ambitious. You need to, it's at the end of the day, everything is in your mind and stuff like that. And what I used to believe when I was 21-year-old was that I can survive on anything because I believe that I had infinite power and energy, right? Which, that's what a 21-year-old thinks, right? And you finished college and you've done very well academically and you've got your first job. And which for me, that was the genesis of writing this book. Every single mistake I made at the age of 21 has actually led to what I call wealth tax because I made a lot of money, right? But there was also a mental tax and a health tax that no one talks about. So when I was looking at my own two sons, my two adult sons, and how they were going through their, I realized that they had a certain energy wish when they were looking for a job, the first job, right? They've spent 10 years of their life in high school, college, and everyone has been supporting them. Parents paid their bills, they got their scholarships, books are available. You can go into any bookstore, you have friends who can help you with their notes. So there's actually a whole infrastructure and structure in place. Now comes the big surprise. You've worked those 10 years, you get your first job, and you tell your parents, we are set for life. And the
Yeah.
parent smiles very quietly because the parent knows, nobody, you have another 30 years still ahead of you. And those 30 years are going to reveal to you how cruel the world actually is. Because till now, people have supported you to make sure you are successful. Now you're going to enter the corporate world where only one in five will get promoted. Now, your question is, how do you make sure you're not in those four out of five that are not going to get promoted? How will you win that battle? And the battle is not only about the, let's call it diplomacy and not call it politics for 1 second, right, Vish? But then the reality is, how do you cope? And I think that's where people fail to understand. A lot of people tell me, "So Deepak, you're anti-ambition." And my response, Vish, is I'm not anti-ambition. I wrote this book for ambitious people who need to understand the definition of success. That's how I would introduce the rationale for coming up with this book. This book, in my opinion, is very simple. I'm going to talk about how to reclaim taking back time, energy, and finding yourself in the process and not losing yourself in the process. And that's extremely critical. In our rush to define ambition and success as being measured by monetary gain. We sometimes assume that if I make lots of money, therefore I must take lots of pain, and therefore I can misuse my own body, misuse my own relationships, as long as I make more money or I have achieved success based on my definition of success. That's
Hmm.
the clarion call that led to this book. I wrote this book as if I'm 21 years old and I'm reading something that will now help me. From the age of 21 to 30, that's my sweet spot. I want those people to understand investing time and effort into how you operate at this point is going to give you huge dividends. It's going to make sure that you preserve your mental health, plus career longevity. Wish if you're earning a good salary, but you're going to leave that function because you can't take the stress or the person anymore that's managing you, then you have a problem because you're going to go to a lower salary and over
Yeah,
time it
absolutely.
compounds. So career
Hmm.
longevity was also a thought that came to my mind. I hope
No,
that that's
yeah, absolutely. If I could summarize that and in a nutshell, what James Clear said once, you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. So similar things happen with the career as well. So of course, you bring your skill set, but then you're operating in an environment, in an ecosystem, and that ecosystem has a tendency to pull you down. So how you become more resilient, how you understand to navigate through that system, I think that's very important. That's what you talked about through your experience.
it's
And
wish it is
yeah.
something you said that I need to respond to, because James
Hmm.
Clear, I think he did a fantastic job, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I realized was that, and I've always said this, and I'm grateful for James for giving us a framework that's now recognized because you were very comfortable talking about it. The parallel for me when I was writing this book, and I just actually realized that I never actually lifted the book up. This still shows not for resale because this was the original proof. As of
Hmm.
right now, as I talk to you, Vish, the book is live on Amazon. Today is the first day of the book being available on Amazon, so I'm supremely proud of that moment. But coming back to James Clear, your attitude is going to define your altitude. For me, that was like the limit thing that he
Hmm.
spoke about, right? And I actually realized attitude is a very critical thing. People think that ambition and just working hard is attitude. Attitude is actually attitude towards a holistic self awareness, and understanding how you operate in this world, and how, as an operator, you then set the things in motion so that you get a career flywheel, so that it becomes routine, and that centrifugal force then keeps giving you more gains, more benefits, because you have figured out an engine that works very well. That was the thought process around coming out with this book and the frameworks in it.
Thank you, Deepak. So before we move forward, I have a few housekeeping notes. So this is for the viewers who are joining us today in the live session. Say hi, and from which location are you joining? Do share that in the comment section. Do not worry about the if you miss any segment. This session is going to be available on YouTube and also on LinkedIn. So you can watch this session, watch the miss segment of this session anytime when you want to do. um, we also have a special treat this time. So, lucky viewers, 5 to 10 lucky viewers. I think initially I had five, but Deepak mentioned that we can accommodate 10 viewers who will win a Kindle version of Rise Up. So, but these viewers should engage in our session. You should ask questions to Deepak, and when we kind of record how many viewers have asked the questions on the base of that, then we are going to have a lucky draw. So do share your thoughts, do share your comments and questions in the comment section on the LinkedIn event page. And and at the same time, we want to have this session more interactive and insightful for all of you. So now let me move to the first segment, which is actually about the emotional signals. And you know we eh, we as professionals, we wrestle daily with burnouts. And sometimes we think, are we truly in control of our career, or we are just keeping afloat while running on empty? So I think, Deepak, you have a chapter on decoding emotional signals as well. But let's unpack some of these signals in this segment. So I'm going to have this first question, which is about the burnout. While I did share this research earlier, this data earlier, that 76% of employees experience burnout. Uh, but what is if you imagine a professional burning the midnight oil regularly but feeling disconnected and fatigued, what are the hidden signals of this silent burnout that you talked about in your chapter? Burnout begins quietly.
Yeah. So here's the fun thing with burnout that,
Mm,
people tell me that, Deepak, I'm feeling burnout. I'm feeling burnt out. I'm feeling down. Burnout is actually not easy to define or to actually figure out because some of us
mm,
actually take it as the price of success. I feel a stress in my body, in a tension, so therefore it's acceptable because I've been working hard, and we kind of move on. Now, very interestingly enough, is that I'm not anti-stress also because the body does require some element of stress to actually function the right way. When you are under threat, you are under stress, and when you're under stress, you're actually going to think differently. The problem is when you're overstressed or you're stressed for consistently long times. That's when you start getting into the burnout type of things, right? So for me,
mm,
the way that you look at burnout is as follows, and there's some hidden signs as they call them. This is when you are quick to say yes to something, but then immediately you resent that you said yes because now you're realizing that, I should have just said no, but you did not have the courage to say no. Because you didn't
mm,
say no, you would now end up in a stress situation because now you have to do what you committed to do, even though you didn't want to do it. So when you want to do something, you have a different feeling to it. But now you've just committed to something that you didn't want to do, which is, and I'm saying this example
mm,
because people think that Deepak, burnout is very complex. You're going to use some scientific terms. It's not. Not. Burnout is small cuts that you give to yourself that over time will bleed you to death.
mm,
Burnout can lead to severe mental health issues as well. And I say this with deep respect because I have also struggled with my own inner demons, as we call it, right? Which during
mm,
COVID, I was down with COVID twice. And in that period, I actually had my voice changed permanently. The way I approached work changed. And as I was working through with external resources to understand what was happening to me, I actually understood this topic. And that's when I actually decided to write this book. Initially, the book was supposed to be about mental health, but then I changed it into more of
okay.
a navigation career guidance. Right now,
Mm,
the way that I want to explain this is that if you want to see whether you're burnt out or not, is when you go to bed, and even though you feel very tired, but if you can sleep deeply, then you know that you have a sense of achievement. Burnout is when you are going to bed, but the sense of achievement is missing because you did a lot of activity, but you did not deliver what you were supposed to deliver. And that combination, you need to look at the root cause for that. And the root cause for that is very simple. You've been doing what I call low impact tasks at high intensity. You've done work which is awesome, great from your perspective, but it actually delivers very little value. And until you
mm,
cannot figure that out, you're going to be in trouble. What we do in the book is that we actually use the framework RISEUP, RISEUP. And Vish, I want to take a moment just to make sure that people understand why I use this six words, right? These six letters, this
sure.
word. The word rise up to me is a very powerful way of simply saying that you rise up, right? You say
Mm,
to people, right? Rise up, man, lift yourself up, rise up from the ashes, rise up to conquer. We use this language, correct? So when
mm,
rise up came to mind, I actually asked myself, Deepak, how would you use this as a framework? Now, I must be honest, the framework came first, the word came later. And for that, thank God for ChatGPT, right? Great wish. In my mind, the framework was very simple. The R stands for recognize, and this is a message to everyone because of the burnout question.
mm,
Recognize first what's happening to you. It's very important. And that R is important for people to step back and actually ask themselves, what am I feeling? How am I feeling in this moment? And people don't do that very well. And that's extremely critical for me that people understand that. Clarity will always beat sheer willpower. Sheer willpower,
mm,
people will tell you confidently, you can only climb Mount Everest because of willpower. My answer is as follows: no, you climb Mount Everest because of training and because of the right equipment. The willpower can get stuck if you don't have that with you. That's how you rationalize to people and explain to them. Sheer willpower will get you killed most likely. On an aircraft, that's why they
mm.
tell you put your mask first and then help others. And that mask is
Yeah.
there to ensure survival. So I think people misunderstand that. You have the option not to put the mask on and try to save your child and put their mask on. But if you pass out, you've endangered your life and the child's life. So the R is the first step, recognize. The second step is the I. That is to say, interrupt. Stop the stuff that you do on autopilot and ask yourselves, have you developed the right boundaries and have you shown the right discipline around how you use technology as an example, right, Vish?
Mm,
Today we live in a very different world. AI in the last 2 years has actually, I watch how people are operating. AI is now consuming people to do stuff that they never would have done before. Previously, we used to simply do doom scrolling, which is reading nonsense. Now we are sitting there making nonsense videos of ourselves as the Avengers, ourselves
Yeah.
as some comical character creating animation, which adds zero value, but it gives you a nice dopamine hit. So the question
Mm.
that I am putting in the book is interrupt that cycle. A pattern interrupt is a great way to break a conversation. Do that. What's going on? And the word that I would always tell people is pause is power. Wish pause, because pause is very powerful. Do that.
Mm.
The S fish was actually around strengthen. Now that you've done the R and the I, right, you've done the recognition and you've done the interruption, strengthen your understanding by building resilience skills. And to me that's very simple. You need to now start focusing on what do I need to do with this core engine of mine, because once you build
Mm.
this engine, now you can accelerate. And that's where the E comes in, Bish. The E is nothing more than expand. You've done the RIS, you've understood yourself, you're now ready to expand. Expansion is very simple. You now have a clear aim, because aim will always beat effort. In the same way that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, the same thing will happen
Mm.
here also for you. Now, Wish, you've got the expansion, you're now ready. Now comes the moment of truth in the corporate world, where you need to uplift your identity and you need to align your culture with the culture and actually influence the culture outside of you. To me, this is where I'm asking you to become the signal and not the noise. You are now a beacon of hope. People are looking at you and you're
Mm.
looking at your personal brand. How do you achieve that? And once you figured that out, now you move to what I call the final stage, which is propel, which is now saying that I have now figured out my rhythm. And now I'm going to take my rhythm and I'm going to turn it into progress, which is intentional, which is now structured. And this is the important thing here. And I think this is also where James Clear comes in once again. I look at Propel as a simple thing. It's your routine, which is now
Mm.
acting as a force multiplier. You have now mastered how to navigate your environment and you put structure into that. And now this is that flywheel I was talking about. You build the right system, you can scale to $2 million, Wish, and since you're a growth strategist, right? Now you get to $8 million, you get to $10 million. And Wish, you and I always ask the joke, what happens? How do you scale beyond $10 million? And you can only scale
Mm.
when you have that core engine working. This is how the Rise Up framework came through in my mind. So the entire 33 chapters in the book, and honestly, Vish, when I started writing the book, my intent was not to publish 520 pages. The goal was to come up with maybe a 200-page, quick and easy read that people could remember. Along the way,
Mm.
what happened was that I started looking at this and I realized, but I have so many stories to tell. I have so much to share. And I ultimately decided that I would like to create a self-coaching guide, even though it's copious, heavy. You can actually use this as an attack instrument also. I actually brought in my son and I asked him a simple question. I have a generational gap. How can you help me close this generational gap? And he said, I want you to rewrite every single word as if you're talking to yourself at 21 years age in a sunny Starbucks or coffee day on the
Mm.
side, having a conversation in an area which is psychologically safe, and where you're telling him, look, buddy, I know what you're going through, and I know you're trying to shine, but you're doing too much. Slow down, because in the end, it doesn't really matter. And I say this
Yeah.
because Vish, I have made a lot of mistakes, right? But I'm going to pause there because I think that you've got the answer now. You know I can keep talking, but I'm going to hand it back to you so you can kind of
Yeah. Yeah.
conclude
No,
so the audience gets value
yeah.
out of this.
Thanks, Deepak. So yes, your rise up framework is very structured and very thought through as what you shared here. But let me also talk about some elements from your book. Of course, I'm yet to go through your entire book, but I found some of the chapters which are very interesting. So one chapter is about the self doubt trap, and I was also reading some statistics on internet and found LinkedIn's 2025 research where it says people actually um, have they still have some kind of a imposter syndrome, and they doubt on their self-worth, even though they might be a top performing in their organization. um, and when you have these kind of self doubts, your it actually impacts your decision and your confidence. It also impacts the way of your working. So how does your framework help professionals break free from this trap, this the self doubt trap, and move forward with certainty?
That's there's a lot going on there, right, Vish? Let's break it down for 1 second. Self-doubt and imposter syndrome, at least from my nuanced point of view, are actually on the same continuum, but they're actually two
Mm.
slightly different things. So it's like you can be, I don't want to get into this, but from a mental health point of view, you can sometimes be only disturbed to some degree, and then you have depression and so on. Now, I'm not an expert, but I've studied enough to know that. Here is how I want to break this down for you. First of all, self doubt and imposter syndrome is actually not the fact that you have low self esteem or you lack confidence. It's sometimes just a cultural thing or a head track that you have which makes you hesitate. And
Mm.
your hesitation is very simple. It's that I most likely don't know the answer. If I were to share it, people will ridicule me or people will think that I don't know what I'm talking about. So, the first thing that you need to do, and this is so simple, you will fall over laughing, Vish, is if you were sitting in a meeting and your best friend was sitting there, and 2 days back you and him had a great conversation on politics and you were amazed with his ideas. Now that same topic comes up and your
Mm.
friend is remaining silent or looking confused. You look at the friend and ask yourself, why is he not talking? I know he knows this topic, but why is he not opening his mouth?
Mm.
And this is where the guy steps back out. So I typically ask someone who's got self doubt about themselves, if you had that scenario with a friend of yours, what would you do? And guess what they tell me, Vish? They say, I will tell him, hey, buddy, have faith in yourself. I know you know the topic, so why did you open your mouth? Don't talk a lot
Yeah.
about it. You could have said, I'm not sure, but this is what I think. What do you guys think? Put it back
Mm.
that way. So the question I then ask people is that amazing? You have the right answer to your friend, but that same answer you do not apply to yourself. Why? Because Vish, we have not been taught self compassion. We have not been taught to show ourselves grace. And I always tell people this one, go back to some of the literature from the ancients. Simple truths will set you free. खुद की जय से पहले, remember that दूसरों की जय से पहले
Yeah.
खुद की जय करे. When I
Good.
first heard that
Yeah.
line, before you give, you know, accolades to others, give accolade or recognition to self, because building yourself
Mm.
is the most critical thing that you can do. Because if you don't build yourself, what's the point of building others up? Build
Mm.
yourself up. खुद ही को बुलंद कर इतना, as we say, right? And to
Yeah. Yeah.
me, these words people listen to, but they absolutely think it's a rock song, and they "Kudi ko," and they sing with it, right? And I just sit there astounded. There's so much gravity in those words, but we don't, because that's the problem, right? Every house has
Mm.
a religious book, but every house does not practice a religious book. So I tried to put
Correct.
this book together to bring those thoughts together. So now here is something that I want everyone to take away from this. The book, each chapter actually ends with what I call the coach framework. And this is extremely important, just to give a context here. In the scenario what you spoke about of self doubt or imposter syndrome, you need to just understand one thing. When you are feeling fear of talking and you're showing that you're not confident for your opinion, just understand one thing. You're not making a judgment call on yourself. You're just offering an hypothesis. Maybe I'm scared to
Mm.
open my mouth. Not I am scared to open my mouth. Maybe I'm scared to open my mouth. That questioning gives you what I call the first C in coach, clarity. You now actually understand things because you're asking a different question. Now, Vish, you and I from sales. When I tell you, Vish, what do we need to do to win the deal? Your brain works in a certain way. But now, Vish, if I tell you, Vish, how can we lose this deal? Your brain is going to work in a different way. You may
Yeah.
think that you're working towards winning the deal, but Vish, I assure you, the genesis and the thought process has started from very different angles. You are now going to become
Mm.
very, and this is where this is called the devil's advocate way of thinking, right? I know how I can win, but what can make us lose, guys? Think about that also. So this way, you are now doing a triage, or at least coming in from 2 or 3 different directions with an attack strategy. Here, you are shifting that mindset. What's happening versus what am I afraid might happen? People say, if I talk, people will see through me and know that I'm stupid. Oh, so that's a hypothesis that something will go out. Need to get clarity on that first. So, what exactly are you afraid of? That people will think you're stupid, or that people may appreciate you? You don't know anything yet right now. So, I would always
Mm.
tell people, unless someone directly tells you that that's a bad idea, I would ask you to offer your idea. And if you're not capable of offering the idea in the moment, offer the idea in an email later. Offer the idea over a cup of tea to someone so that you build up more confidence. But don't walk away with your idea. Always bring it out into the light. And anything that is brought to the light is always going to be illuminated because sharing is caring, and sharing also enhances your own knowledge, right? In the same way that I gave that example of the two friends talking about politics, the same thing is happening in the work environment also. So be confident. The second thing is the O in coach is the options. Ask yourself, at this point, I had some ideas. What are the ways that I could have positioned it differently? One of those ways could be write an email, be more forthright, or maybe write a little memo and send it to the team and say, guys, at the room, I did not think about it and I was not able to communicate because I wasn't comfortable. But now I've thought about it. Those are your options.
Mm.
Execute on those options. Take that action, which is the ACOA action. Take an action. When you take that action, two things are going to happen. You're going to start feeling different. And that's where the next C comes in, which is confidence. Why are you feeling different? What did you do? Can you do it again? Can you do it again? And that's when you
Mm.
do it again and again and again. And then ultimately, the most important thing is the H in coach, which is help. Help. It frustrates me to no degree, Wish, when I see people telling me there's no one at work to guide me. You expect people to walk up to you and say, hey, Wish, I will mentor you. You're very lucky if that happens. I would say 20%, 25% of the people on this planet are ever going to have people walking up to them. The rest of us will actually have to go and seek mentorship and guidance.
Mm.
Don't be shy. When you are battling with these concerns in your mind about if I open my mouth, what will the world think? And let me tell you a big truth that I've learned. When I coach senior leaders, I always tell them identify the sales reps or the people in the room who don't talk, or are great thinkers, but they are hesitant to talk. Call them out and ask them their opinion in public. Do it
Mm.
once, do it twice, do it thrice. They will burst out of that shell of theirs and start contributing because they suddenly realize it's a safe zone. I'm not being punished for my idea. And in fact, someone is asking me to share it. And that is what I would say too. Self doubt, imposter syndrome are easy to detect. But Wish, what frustrates me? Managers don't act upon it because guess what? Touchy feely, too personal. I don't want to get into it because if I get into it, then I become heavily invested, Deepak. And at the end of the day, I
Mm.
have to do carrot and stick, right? And I have to performance manage the person. Reality is, in a post-COVID world, with the new generation, many of the people that I wrote this book for, they actually wish will not work for the same company for 10 years. You can argue with this with me on as much as you want. You can do that, but I can
Mm.
tell you, mindset is different. Working from home has made people actually value and cherish balance in life. Now, some people will still forget that, and that's what this book is going to
Mm.
do: bring them back, bring them back. Okay, Wish.
So I have a
Yeah.
question, Deepak. You talked about help, external help. If we look at the other side of this coin, there are many employees who actually look for external validation for their career growth, and this sometimes becomes a challenge when this external validation or support becomes a psychological trap. And that's why in fact there's some research which also mentioned that 70% of people wait for permission to drive their careers forward. So why is this, you know, why is waiting for external validation so dangerous? And what courageous shifts you encourage to take immediate ownership of career development? I think you did talk about this in your
I will
book.
hammer this for
So
you. Let me hammer this for you because it is so important for people to understand. Vish, I was once sitting with a senior manager 20 years ago, and over coffee, he said to me, hey, Deepak, this role came out, and I'm just curious, why have you not applied for it yet? And I said to him, well, I didn't feel that it's my place to apply because if I am good, then I was expecting someone would come and tell me that. And he said to me, oh, you're actually waiting for someone to walk up to you and tell you that, hey, Deepak, this post is out. I think you'd be a good fit. Apply for it. He says, what world are you living in? And I said to him, no, I'm rational. I'm realistic. The company's got an obligation and they just promoted me and I don't feel that I should be, this, that. And his point was very simple. When a baby cries, that's a signal to a mother to give milk.
hmm,
Many mothers will challenge me and say, no, I feed without the baby crying. But look, let's stop for a second here. At the end of the day, if you are not expressing your wants or your needs to your manager and taking
yeah,
control of, your manager's job is to facilitate your career. facilitate your career, not own your career. You take ownership of it. So whether you like it or not, at some point you will have to stand up and be the man. You have to just stand up and say that, hey, this is my life, this is my opportunity, I need to take it. Many managers avoid this conversation because they don't want to. I was lucky. And Wish, just FYI, they then made me apply for that role and I got the role. That was my first director role at age 36. At age 36, I was a director. My salary literally doubled. I literally changed countries. And I'm extremely grateful because and you know, the shift that occurred is only here, just an inch shifted this way. That's it. Same Deepak, same operational capability, same communication style, but someone just gave me that little power to understand that you need to. After that, Wish, I made a couple of changes. Those changes were as follows. If someone
Yes.
asks me, Deepak, where do you see your career going in the next 2, 3, 5 years? I would actually be very articulate. I would make it very clear. There are three roles that I'm very excited about. Roman does this role, Fish does this role, and Deepak does this role. I would love to apply for those roles when they come open. Can you consider me as a successor for them? Vish, what did I say that is wrong there? But 90% of the people on this call will not have that conversation because we feel it's not our place to go and dictate to people. What will my boss think? Let me tell you what your boss will think. The boss will think that, hey, he's giving me a way to look at him in a different way. And he will then do something which I think is very valuable. He'll tell you why you're not ready. And when you hear that you're not ready, people react. See, Deepak, I told you. I knew I was not ready, and he's confirmed I'm not ready. Stop. You're mixing things up. Now ask him, what are the three things I need to do to convince you that I will become ready? And how long will you give me to do that? That is how you're going to change your life, which to answer that question for you. So
Yeah.
this is important. If you want to break through and get authentic confidence, you really need to first start with confidence. And authentic is being open, being candid. Don't play the political game, right? Don't throw people under the bus. As an example, which my boss told me, I actually got approached by someone who said that you're doing a very bad job in what you do, and therefore they should get your job. And I will never hire someone who thinks like that. That's not authentic confidence. That is confidence which is political. And that's a very
Mm.
important differentiation I wanted to put on the table over here. When your intent is clean, you want to add value and you're doing it not only for monetary gain, but actually because you want to grow, then you need a framework and a structure. And that's where this confidence angle come through. And
Yeah, so actually, you touch upon two sides here. One is, of course, supportive environment. When you're working in a supportive environment, there's a your boss or your senior would come and recommend, okay, this job fits you. And then there's an unsupportive environment where there's more politics, where there might be some bit of nepotism or some other way to pull you down or push you to a different department. So that's where
Wish.
how you build that networking so that you can navigate through through these systems. And that's where my next question is. So how can a professional shift their mindset from chaotic environment, unsupportive environment, to an intentional career planning and start scheduling real career growth actions on a, say, weekly basis? I think you have a chapter on intentional career planning, so maybe you can throw some lights in terms of how they can build
Uh, uh,
their influence and do networking. Yeah.
Here's the funny thing. In my career, I lost my job twice in my career, Wish. And both times when I lost my job, I was stunned. The first time when I lost my job, I was 27 years old and I actually cried because I could not understand why life was being unfair to me. And
Hmm.
as I was crying, one of the senior managers walked in and he looked at me and says, what are you doing? Because I was hiding in a boardroom, in a dark boardroom, crying quietly. He just walked in on his phone because he wanted to take a call. He sensed something was up because I also heard that six of the sales guys had been fired that morning in one shot. The entire team had been disbanded. And I was one of those people that was impacted, right? So he said to me, what are you doing here? So I said, no, it's just we had the conversation and six of us were laid off. This is so, no. He said, I know that. But what are you doing here right now in the darkness crying about it? I said, I'm just crying. He said, why?
Hmm.
He said, you're going to cry for a company? He says, never. You want to cry on a situation? You're not alone. There are five more that got impacted. And when six people get impacted, then it's not about you anymore. It's
Hmm.
about the company. This is a stop blaming yourself what you could have done different or what you could have seen differently, right? Now, He made me promise one thing that day. What are you going to do to ensure your career doesn't have this blip again in the future, Deepak? You cannot stop your manager from firing you. But can you build better relationship with other managers in the organization that potentially can say, awesome guy, yes, he's down today, but let's give him a job. Two, build
Mm,
relationships and networks beyond your manager. Go to this way, go to this way. Do
mm,
work that makes your team people say that, you know what, this guy is genuine. When I had a problem at home, he said to me, no issue, hand me this and I'll help you with it. This guy is always there for us. That aura is how you then create not just that confidence, but also
mm,
a practical way to get away from this. Real career growth will come because not because you plan for roles, it comes because you create a personal brand that resonates with people. The second time when I lost my job was because two departments merged and I was an extremely senior person. It is absolutely devastating when an announcement comes out that with two divisions being merged, you didn't get the job or the other guy got the job. And that happened to me. And in the announcement, it very calmly said, and Deepak and the company are in discussions about his next move. And something hit me. That line only came because I did not do my job. I had not built
mm,
relationships enough to know that when this was going to happen, I should have been comfortable that some manager would stand up and say, I want this guy. So an announcement would have been about my next role. And I said, how do
mm,
you avoid that in the future, Deepak? Just to give an idea, Vish, within 2 weeks of that incident, I actually had a job. And that job changed my entire career trajectory because they put me on a project that exposed me to headquarters. And that's how I ended up in the US. So the message to everyone is when you are looking at frameworks and step back, get the emotion out of it. Think about what do you need to do to go beyond what a company is actually going to do for you. And that's why I wrote this as a self-coaching guide. Stop relying on
mm,
other people's generosity or goodness. Work a framework that gives you the confidence and the ability to build this network of capability, both in relationships as well as in what's happening in you. That was approach I took. And stop with the chaotic firefighting. It's not worth it. It doesn't work. When you are in firefighting mode, it's the same thing, right? Which planning, structure, and systems always will beat. And if you want growth, you need to have a systematic approach to it. And people
yeah.
ask me systematic approach, I'm not a machine. I said, okay, let me ask you a question.
Mm,
Do you look at your resume every quarter and update it? No. I only look at my resume when I apply for a job. When last did you apply for a job? 3 years ago. So in the last 3 years, can you quickly tell me how you've grown? No one knows. A
mm,
resume is a great proxy for growth. Think about it, Vish. If you have a resume that's changing every quarter by skills, the type of work you do, the achievements you have, you're going to feel awesome about it. And when you feel awesome about it, that's when you'll have the courage to actually go and apply for better jobs, better roles, because you're seeing this flywheel of generosity and you're now seeing your effort being
mm,
captured on paper. But guess what people do? I'm working very hard. I know that. Does your paper reflect that though? People don't capture it. People miss that. I look at LinkedIn profiles and they read like resumes. That is so wrong. Wish a LinkedIn is not your
mm.
resume. LinkedIn is actually you, the human, telling the world what makes you different. And why should a future employer look at your profile and say, this is the guy that I really need to reach out to? Or when you apply, they go to your profile, they say, you know what, this is the guy that is different. I want to interview him. But guess what? We're so busy running every day with no plan, you are going to see a disaster. And Wish, you and I are from sales. You and I know what happens. If you start your morning and you don't do the 10 calls to a customer or you don't do the 5 proposals to a customer, your week is going to end with very bad metrics and your pipeline is going to suck. So that's behavior.
Exactly. Yeah.
Same behavior has to go into career planning. We are very structured. You go to the bank, you stand in a queue, take your money, you stand there, count it 5 times before you leave, right? Because that's a monetary loss. What if I told you that career building is also going to preserve your job, which could have been a monetary loss? Plus, getting an increase every 5 years of 15-20% can actually deliver to you a couple of crore rupees or $1 million at the end of 20 years of working. Isn't that a good return investment? But no, people don't look at it that way. Hence why I wrote this book. Intentionality, structure is going to set you free. Career longevity is the outcome that we are looking for. That was the passion behind this book. Again, you got a brilliant question and you got me excited there. Back to you, Vish.
No, no, you actually touched upon a couple of points, and I didn't stop you while I had few comments. So one is, of course, when you're talking about resumes, this age of AI, if you look at the kind of resumes that are coming to the system, it's very difficult for HR teams to kind of go through all the resumes, and they are deploying system to go through all the resumes that they are getting. So I think we should be doing a different session, on
So
resume building
we should,
altogether,
in
because it's
fact,
not the traditional.
Wish, do it.
It's not the
Wish, do it.
traditional way. Mhm.
Wish, do it. And I'll tell you why. You're going to fall over laughing again. Wish, at the end of November, I have 3 books coming out: a book on LinkedIn, a book on
Okay.
resumes in the age of AI, and a book on interview techniques in the age of AI. I wrote
Yeah.
these 3 books because I'm absolutely focused on making sure that people get the best out of this person. In the last 15, 20 years of my life, I'd like to make an impact on planet Earth. This is my
Correct.
contribution. 3 decades of knowledge assimilated, bring it out to the world, help people understand. Let's bring some focus back to this, right? We talk about healthcare, we talk about government, we do not spend the same passion in asking ourselves. We will spend 20 minutes on LinkedIn commenting on other people's nonsense, but we don't spend 20 minutes to read someone's post and ask yourself, do I agree? Do I disagree? Think twice, but no. And to be honest, wish the AI stuff is an amazing conversation, and you and I have had multiple conversations on this. But I'll just make a point to everyone on this
Yeah.
call. When it comes to career progression, authenticity will kick ass every time. Ladies and gentlemen,
Mm.
please be aware of that. Two, AI leaves its fingerprints all over your work. People will know you're not thinking. If your resume is going to be there only for ATS testing and passing, then I tell you what, we are all in trouble, because I've lately noticed every resume that comes on my desk is top notch. Wish it's a Italian masterpiece of cookery. It's an
Correct.
amazing 52, Indian thali, right? 52 gourmet dishes all lined up. You cannot tell anymore which is fake, which is real. It's a
Mm.
photo shoot of custard with actually it's yogurt. You don't know what's going on. And I'm giving
Correct.
everyone a heads up right now. Career progression is going to be very different in the next few, not, I would say by the end of 2025. You are most likely going to have send a resume in. You will also most likely do a 15-minute AI driven interview upfront. The scores for
Mm.
both will be combined. The AI is going to go in so deep, because wish I tested 3 products on AI, and I'm telling you, they made my life like hell, because AI is trained on thousands of people. No recruiter, no hiring manager can think the way that AI will think. We went in
Mm.
so deep, and only mastery. GPT being used to create a resume, but you cannot talk to your resume during the interview, you're dead. And that's what they're going to do
Yeah.
now. The AI will test you on that upfront. So your score is not going to be an ATS score anymore. It's actually going to be an ATS score plus an AI driven avatar discussion that's going to be graded against. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the question comes to you as follows. So you can't rely on your resume only. You are going to get an interview with an artificial intelligence. Where's the middle path? The middle path is a unique story, a unique conversation, and a unique voice.
Mm.
Please work on that. In the same way that we say that AI is going to take away jobs, I'm telling you, AI is not going to take any jobs, Wish. The jobs will be taken by Wish, who is using AI, and I will lose my job because Wish will take my job. It's
Yeah.
ultimately colleagues
And
going to take out the colleagues. Nothing else is going to happen. Whoever uses AI the right way, the efficient way, is going to be the king of the hill in the next 2 years, I would predict, not even 5 anymore.
mm. No, it's important to kind of build that authenticity, and it reminds me of Gary Vaynerchuk's advice. If you have to build authenticity, give value, not just ask for it. So if you have not started giving value, you should begin giving value. And what Deepak said, so we are not going to lose jobs. The jobs are going to change, and this is what World Economic Forum also said, that
Yep.
50% of the jobs are going to change by 2027. And that's where upskilling is also very important. So if you have to provide enhanced value, you need to upskill as well continuously. Upskilling is a lifelong attribute, and you can't kind of, I mean, if you are in a career which actually requires high potential, you to kind of align with the systems, with the dynamics of the business environment, then upskilling is a critical pillar for your career to grow and survive. So in fact, Deepak, you also have a chapter on upskilling in your book. So how should, and one of the question, in fact, when I speak to some of the mid-level or entry-level people, they often ask me, how should we define, or how should we identify what critical skills we should build for our career to grow. So what is your suggestion or views in terms of
Absolutely.
upskilling? Means, how should you define your critical areas of upskilling as you move forward in your career?
There. The way I would answer is the way that I've done it in my own career is one,
Mm,
always understand that relevance needs to be maintained. It
mm,
cannot be just gained and preserved forever. Because while you think you have achieved, the world is moving forward. It's like being on a treadmill. The treadmill is moving at a certain pace. The second you stop, you suddenly realize you're going to fall off the treadmill. So you need to maintain a certain rhythm. When we talk about skills, I always tell people one thing to do is look, don't confuse yourselves. Break it down first.
mm,
Find one skill that you need for your role and find one skill that is going to change your role, but it's on the horizon. It could be a new ERP module, it could be a new system, it could be a new way of doing a process. It could also just be the infusion of AI into your work you do. For me personally, the impression I want to give people is as follows. A lot of people ask me, Deepak, you have a view on everything on the planet. Where do you find the time?
mm,
I said, the reality is that you're looking at me static with my head above the water. But under the water, my feet are furiously paddling because I'm learning, adapting. And if you do not figure out how to remain focused above the water, but underneath you're furiously paddling, which is you're acquiring knowledge in a structured way, in an unstructured way, whatever, but figure it out. So for me, when I look at it this way, 2 years ago when AI came out, it to me it was a novelty wish, right? And I was one of those few
mm,
people who actually missed the significance of AI because I was so taken up with this little quaint tool. But suddenly what happened is that in 1 month, 2 month, 3 month, this quaint tool actually started telling me that I was wrong in my thinking and was showing me a better way. And that's when I said, wait, what happened here? Now, instead of looking at that as a threat, I said, this is interesting. I can learn better. I can learn faster. So my entire philosophy with AI has been not to do AI for the sake of doing AI to stay on top because of the fear of missing out or because AI is a shiny object. I said, I want
mm,
to use AI to enhance and augment my intelligence so that this artificial intelligence is only the means to the end, and the end is my greatness. So my infusion of it is nothing more than simply saying that Deepak, I'm going to get the best computer so that I can program better. I'm going to get the best lighting so that I look great on a video conference call. That's how I look at AI. I will use AI because it makes me learn faster. It makes me more articulate. It makes me understand the dearth of data that I have on my clients. I cannot remember
mm.
all my clients' wish, but guess what? I have the transcripts of the call, and AI reminds me that in the last session, this is what you promised. And I have incorporated that
Yeah.
into my behavior. So I don't use AI
Mm,
as a crutch. I'm using AI as a force multiplier. And that's what I want to just, mention to everyone over here.
mm,
Find those skills that are critical. Find a skill that is going to become critical. Invest time into that.
mm,
I always tell people also that, put time in your diary. Guys, actually go and ask yourself, if you were an apprentice or an intern, what type of projects would you do? And then find a project and do it at your own patience and pace. That's one of the reasons I'm a big fan of Lean Six Sigma. Wish once you have a philosophy like that behind you, constantly look for
mm,
problems and keep solving them. It keeps you sharp. It also keeps you very processed. For me, take fewer bets on the type of things that you do, but make sure that whatever bets you take give you deeper gains. So assess
mm,
that, create a 2 by 2 matrix and say, this skill is going to make me more money. This skill is going to make me more intelligent, and figure out the balance and then invest equally on those. And invest in such a way that you're managing your time efficiently. Because to be honest with you, I someone asked me, Deepak, what have you achieved? You give everyone so much ideas. I said, oh, okay, nothing much. But this year
mm,
I did 16 podcasts. This year I got a generalist AI from Outskill. I also got a diploma in brain health. Then people look at me like,
mm,
where do you do all that? Where do you find the time? I said, but you just said to me, na, you talk a lot, but what do you do? And I'm telling you, I talk a lot, but I also do. I do, therefore I talk. That's the reality. If I
mm.
did not
No,
do,
you talked about, yeah. Sorry to cut you here, but you talked about 2 by 2 framework and you talked about money, and you also talked about your efforts. And but I think one more element that they should be adding, and especially is people who are at the early stage of their career, is the purpose and the joy. So if they can add that purpose to what they are doing, I think they can create a better framework in terms of seeing their career growth. And that also reminds me of a quote from Simon Sinek. He said, people don't buy what you do; they buy why you do it. So if you have defined that why, then it helps your career to grow in the way that you expect.
Wish
But
that,
you, yeah,
that what you just said is what I call a capstone. You know, when you do your MBA in the
mm,
last semester, they make you do a capstone course like strategic management or something where you assimilate all this knowledge. That
mm,
knowledge, that's when you realize the why of what you just did. And the
yeah,
why is purpose. You're absolutely right. I actually conclude in the final chapters in the book of sometimes it's difficult for you to understand your why. This is where self
mm,
awareness comes in. Why do you do what you do and what are the outcomes you want to be measured for? You could be measuring yourself based on just sheer how much money I make. Okay, I will not argue. But purpose beyond money is more important because purpose is what will keep you focused when the times are bad. When you're not
mm,
making a quota in the quarter, if you don't have a purpose which is non-monetary, you're going to end up being stressed because you're not going to make a monetary goal. You got to
mm,
understand that. So the goal here is I have 6 deals. I may lose some, but did I learn from them? And will that improve my win rate in the future? That's a far cleaner purpose to drive towards than to say, I have 6 deals, I must win them all and make ₹1 million per month. Hold on. Because if you don't make ₹1 million per month, I know what's going to happen. Because it's so well quantified, your pain will be also measurable. On a scale of 0 to 10, you will absolutely tell me it's a 10 because I feel bad I didn't achieve my objective. But the objective that you put down was so mercenary, so
mm,
definitive that just failing it would have given you pain because you can't fail. It's in sales, you know this, Vish, right? I made 92% of the quota, but guess what? It's like saying I came fourth in the Olympics, but guess what? No one remembers the fourth winner, right? Only remember the first three names. Those on the podium. The rest
yeah,
of the guys' history. So it's one of those things. So for me, balance
absolutely.
also is important. Once you get purpose, you now know the intent. You now line up all your actions toward that purpose. And people like me who
Mm,
are coaches can help with purpose, right? Which this is extremely critical. This is where you spoke earlier about mentorship. This is where people tell me, sir, coaching is a scam. I don't understand why we need to talk to people. So I have a very simple point. Are you talking to yourself? He says, no, no, I'm talking to God because the divine power will give me inspiration. And I'm like, okay, there are 8 billion people speaking to God. And if that divinity is being shared, then clearly you're going to get a diluted share of it. And God only helps
mm,
those who help themselves. How are you helping yourself? That's when they realize that they're not even doing self coaching. And that is the way I'd like to close this call, Vish, by saying the whole point of this book was actually to give you the tools to self coach yourself and hold yourself accountable. Because when you pay people outside to hold yourself accountable, usually you will realize, Vish, it's not your purpose, it's not your goal, it's the coach's goal. And coaches work very hard to make sure that it becomes your goal. And until you do not accept it, you will not accept any guidance or advice you get from externals. So please go and fix your inner compass, as I call it, inner purpose. Wish, I'm
mm.
looking at the time. I just want to make sure. Are there no comments or questions at all? No one wants to get the free ebook. Just want to
I
double
think
check.
your conversation is so straightforward that, and the kind of questions that we have covered, I think that has actually uh, might have answered some of the questions that our audience might have. But we have received comments from three gentlemen, and I think we should consider giving them a Kindle version of your book.
We'll
So
absolutely do that.
we can share their names with you, and you can add them
Absolutely,
for
we'll
for
figure
the
that
free
out.
versions of the book.
Sure.
But I'd like, yeah. So um, uh, I'd like to thank you so much, Deepak, for sharing your insights and frameworks. I'm sure the Rise Up and Coach framework that you shared would certainly help individuals define their career path, define their goals, define their purpose in the life, and they can, also from your book, they can also learn not only to kind of build their brand, build their influence, but also how to navigate some of the unsupportive ecosystems and grow in their profession. But again, thank you so much, Deepak, for sharing these insights.
Absolutely.
And to the audience, mark your calendars for our next session, which is on 20th of November. This is going to be on Is Your Market Always Buying? And we are going to explore discovery signals and referrals with buyer and supplier lenses. So do register for this session. Is on 20th of November. Until then, reclaim your career and keep growing. Deepak, you had few comments
I'm going to
that
close
you were
as
saying.
follows. I'm going to close
Yeah.
as follows, Vish. And we covered quite a lot today, right? I want guys to think about it. First, the book is available on Amazon. Highly recommend you getting a copy. Also, if you don't need to read a book, but you still have something that you want to get off your chest, I am on LinkedIn, Deepak Bhootra. You will find me. I live on LinkedIn 4 hours a day. Feel free to drop me a direct message and ask me. I would like to challenge you on something that I heard, or tell me more. There's so many
Mm.
resources out there that sometimes we're drowning in information and we don't know what to do with it, right? So that's also something that I can help with. I can help you make sense of what's happening out there. The book, of course, first prize for me is for people to buy the book. I would appreciate that. It's on Amazon. But Wish, we have got 5 to 10 copies to give away. So if someone
Yeah.
has not posted a comment or a question, feel free to do that even now. Because Wish and I are very good at actually going back to the comments and actually giving elaborate responses to it. So if there's anyone on the call who has a precise question on a career situation or a manager situation, wants some guidance on that, go ahead, put it down. I will respond to it. I'll give you what I would do in your situation and what my book recommends. And if you do that, and if me and Vish can actually see some really powerful back and forth comments and stuff, happy to go distribute to the 10 people instead of only the 3 people that gave a comment. So keep this going, ladies and gentlemen. Call is over, but the Q&A and the session insights that you want to share with me or ask me questions is still open. That is there. Feel free to misuse me for that. Vish, thank you very much for
Thank
having me.
you.
It was a lot of fun as usual.
Thank you, Deepak. Thank you so much. Goodbye, people. Thank you so much for joining our session.
Bye, everyone.